All right, everybody ready? Whoa, I am loud. Am I a little too loud? Are we good? I'm great. Okay, awesome. Everyone always tells me I'm really loud, so that's normal. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Wednesday afternoon. I'm so excited that you could join us here, and thank you for bringing along your lunch. I know it's tough to grab some food between all these sessions, but we are so excited to have you here and share with you about our process for building Yammer. We are building Yammer for everyone. We have all different types of networks and all different types of users, and we'll be talking about a lot of things today that we've been getting questions on, like how do we prioritize our projects? What happens when you request a feature in user voice? What is A/B testing? And how does that work in my network? And what does that do for my users? We're really excited to share all this with you today, and we'll be answering all those questions and more. We will also have a Q&A at the end, so if you have something that's just been itching in the back of your noggin or something that doesn't quite make sense in the presentation, please do ask questions at the end. We are here and ready for your nittiest and grittiest. With that, I'll introduce ourselves. My name is Anna Marie Clifton. I'm a product manager, the Yammer product team, and I'm thinking a lot about how we prioritize and how to build the features that you're using every day.
I'm Emma Beatty. I'm a user researcher at Yammer, and I'm working to understand our users through qualitative research.
Hi, I'm Supriya Shrestha. I'm a data scientist. I use data to make Yammer better.
Absolutely. So we're all part of the Yammer product team, and we're all building every day. We're building so many features, and I'm so excited to share this slide with you. It's a list of the innovations that we've launched just in the past 12 months. So these are all things and even more that we've produced since we were last on stage in front of you at Ignite 2016. Some of you will see some of your top requested features like Edit Post right there at the very top. How many of you have used Edit Post? Yeah, I use that one every single day. I'm so excited. I'll send a new idea to our head of product, and I'm like, oh, this is a great thing. We should do it. And then immediately see a typo as soon as I press send. I think I'm one of the heaviest users of our edit button internally at Yammer. You also see things like the desktop app and other top requested features. But there's also a lot of features on there that you maybe haven't requested, or you maybe want to understand a little bit more about how did we decide to build that, and why did we prioritize that? And that's what we want to cover for you today. A little bit about how we're listening to users and understanding what their needs are and how we can help build for the best engagement in your networks. It all starts with empowering your users. And the Microsoft mission is to empower every person to be able to achieve more. And the Yammer mission brings that a little bit closer to home for your network. We're trying to connect people in your networks with information so they can make better decisions faster. And we think that this is paramount to keeping in pace with the fast pace of innovation in the 21st century. And this is what helps keep networks and companies thriving in this fast-paced world of today. We believe that every employee should be empowered and able to contribute, that the information that your employees hold is more valuable together than when they hold it for themselves. And most importantly, that connected, your employees are smarter than any of them are individually. And Yammer is about unlocking the power of your network, unlocking the power of the information that your employees hold in their individual minds, and sharing that together so that they can all make better decisions faster. And let me show you a little bit about why working like a network is so paramount here. I want to share a story with you about how Virgin Trains has been using Yammer to work like a network and make better decisions faster. They recently had an issue where the dining cars on their trains were not making enough, they weren't converting enough users to stay profitable, and they were going to have to close down their dining service and their dining cars. A few people were tasked with solving this problem and started coming up with ideas or how they could encourage people to purchase more so they wouldn't have to close down their dining service. They came up with some ideas, and they had a few good ones, and that's great. But they wanted to tap into more ideas, and they wanted to source from across their whole network. So they put the question into Yammer, and they asked their first-line workers who were on the trains and working with these employees, working with these customers every day, and they asked them, well, how would you encourage people to buy more? What can we do to keep this train profitable? And they sourced dozens and dozens of ideas from people who were working with these customers every day and knew their tastes and insights. They were able to collect this information from all across their network and increase the profitability and keep their dining cars serving. And that's why we build Yammer for every type of user, Because if those first-line workers aren't able to give that information, and if those employees that are working in the home office aren't able to ask and engage in that way, then those ideas would just lie latent in people's minds. We really do believe that connected, your employees are more intelligent than they are apart. So today, we're going to be covering how we build for everyone to enable that working like a network. Emma will cover how we listen to users, what user research we do on a daily basis. Then I'll go into how we prioritize our projects. Once we have those big ideas, those big problems, how do we pick the particular features that we're going to test? And then Supriya will wrap us out by talking about how we actually test. How do we run those tests? How do we judge if our hypotheses were correct or not? And all towards making more engagement in your networks possible, empowering the end users in your networks to achieve more together. With that, Emma.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna Marie. So I want to start off talking about all of the habits that we have for listening to all of you, our users and our customers, in a way that allows us to build for everyone across Yammer. And when we say that we're building for everyone, who do we actually mean? As Anna Marie mentioned, in order to achieve our mission, we want to empower everyone at your companies. So that includes your IT admins who know the in and outs of your security and privacy needs. And we want to be able to be in touch with these people so we can build Yammer for the enterprise. Who here is an IT admin? Awesome. Great to have you guys here. And we also have our influencers. So these people are community managers, people in internal communications, and executives. And we know that these types of people have a disproportionate impact on making their Yammer networks more successful. And we want to be able to empower them so they can do their job better and so they can empower others at their organization. Is anyone here a community manager or an influencer? Awesome, welcome. And then we have our end users who make up the bulk of our user base and who are using Yammer every day to collaborate better with their colleagues. And we have all different types of end users across so many different types of companies, from large corporations to small nonprofits, people working in healthcare and government, and people in the farthest reaches of the world. And within these organizations, we have people working in different types of roles. We have people that are office workers, and we have their managers, and we have people working, as Anna Marie mentioned, on the first line, where they're interacting with customers or patients every day, or maybe they're going out on stage to perform. And we have teams that are all over the world that are working on things like nature conservation, from Tajikistan to Indonesia to the UK, and they want to be able to connect together and to work together, even though they're all across the world. We have teams that are flying from New York to London 4 times a week as a part of a flight crew or as a pilot, and they want to feel connected to their greater organization. So as you can see, we have all these different types of users that are using Yammer, and we want to be able to build and deliver value for all of them. And so we've been doing this. As you can see, as Anna Marie showed on that slide, we've been delivering a lot of different features to meet our customers' needs. For our IT admins, we delivered Office 365 group integrations, identity management, and you can see our investment in working towards local data residencies. For our community managers, we're excited to share our group insights feature, so you can keep tabs on your groups and see how they're doing and developing to see who you're reaching with those groups. We also have a report reader role, so you can keep an eye on the usage across your network. And we have our new SharePoint web part, which we're really excited to share with you this Ignite. And for our end users, we're always working towards figuring out how we can create more value for them. How can we help them find more relevant and interesting content on Yammer? How can we help them build their habit of working out loud and in the open at their companies? And so to that aim, we've built things like Edit Post, which is very popular amongst us people at Yammer. We have our Yammer desktop app, which we just announced and shipped this week, so people can build their habits better by having that launch on start. And so we have all these different types of features that we're delivering to all these different types of users. and we're keeping them all in mind so we can deliver value for all of them. So you can imagine, with all these people to keep in mind, it's really important for us to be listening and learning from all of them, from our IT admins, our community managers and influencers, and our end users, who are a little bit harder to get in touch with and to learn from. But we make an active investment in listening and learning to all of them. And not only that, but we're also paying attention to market trends, and we're exploring opportunities for innovation so we can push our product further than we even imagined. We know that no one person or one type of user has the right answer for where we should go next as a product, and that's why we listen across all of these different sources of information so we can make better informed decisions. And so I want to talk about some of the ways that we do this. We have, as I mentioned, we listen to market research and trends. We're also doing data exploration so we can understand how Yammer is being used all over the world by all different types of networks. We're building relationships with customers like you all so we can really hear stories about how Yammer is being used on the ground in real-life context. We also do things like putting our early stage ideas in front of real people so we can get feedback on them, both from people that use Yammer and people that don't, so we can kind of get a gut check and see if we're going in the right direction. And a few of these methods fall under the umbrella of user research. And so as a user researcher, as part of our team, it is my job to really understand the behaviors, the motivations, the values and the perceptions and the pain points of all of our users across Yammer. And so I'm doing this, and our team is doing this all the time. We might send surveys to understand how people are understanding and perceiving our notifications. Or we might run a usability test to see how a first-time user experiences our sign-up flow for the first time. And so we're doing these things all the time as part of specific features and projects. But I want to talk about a couple methods that are bigger than that. And that's exploratory research and user voice. And so these two methods are foundational to our process and to who we are as a product team. They cut across all of our different projects. And they're inspiration for where we should go next as a team, what we should be building for Yammer. And to dig into these a little bit, let's start with exploratory research. So it's kind of how it sounds. It enables us to explore. We don't actually have a specific feature or project in mind yet, and we really just let our research participant lead us and tell us what's important to them in their work lives or on Yammer. So this really allows us to see how Yammer fits into their lives and where it doesn't, and where we have opportunities to create more value. We can understand their pain points, whatever is important to them to bring up to us. And so we do this in a couple ways. We're able to do remote interviewing. So we're able to have people screen share with us so that we can see their Yammer networks, which is so exciting for us because these networks look so different from our own. And by doing these remote screen sharing sessions, we're able to access people all over the world, and we're able to involve everyone on our team. So we have engineers, researchers, data analysts, product managers, and designers all sitting in and listening from our users and learning from them in an easy lunchtime call. And this really helps build our collective knowledge and empathy for all of our users that are using our product. And so it's not, that knowledge and empathy is not just within the research team. Another way that we do this, and we've been doing 45 of these in the past month alone. So you can see it's really integral to our process to always be learning. Another way that we do this exploratory research is through site visits. And this is when we get out of our office and we go and visit you, our customers. And so this is really exciting for us. It's like a field trip. We all get really excited about it. We're going somewhere new, and we're going to be talking to the real people that use our product. And so we get really excited about this. And we are able to involve those same people across our team, all of these different roles. And so this really allows us to observe people's daily lives, because we live in San Francisco and we go to work every day and we work for Yammer, but our work looks so different than from all of yours. So it's really important for us to get out and see people's real life tasks, how they're interacting with one another, and understanding what they're trying to accomplish, what's important to them. And by using site visits, we can actually get at some things that we can't get at in these remote interviews I just mentioned. See, when we interview people, they might leave out some details that might seem really mundane to them, but are actually really, really interesting to us. So for example, we went to go visit a company that has a lot of first-line workers that is kind of working on the ground, seeing customers every day. And when we went to visit them and we were shadowing them, we noticed that they would check their phones and check Yammer on their phones before their shift and after their shift. And then when they were during their shift, when they were working to fix an appliance in the kitchen and they wanted to post to Yammer to corporate about it, they would actually pull out their Surface or their iPad. And that was because it looked more professional. It looked like they were doing work if they were doing it on this device instead. Their phone, they thought that people might think they were just texting their friends. Another example from that trip, we were shadowing and talking to people that were kind of running around to different offices and locations every day. And we saw people pinging them on Yammer, and they wanted to reply, but they wanted to wait until they got back to their desk to sit down, craft a reply, think about it, and type it out. They wouldn't reply in between. And so these are just some of the things that we've learned by going on these site visits to visit customers like you. And it really helps us understand how our different use cases for mobile and web might be different or the same. And so since doing this research, we've really put an investment in bringing our mobile application, bringing it up to parity. So you'll be able to post announcements, polls, and praise on mobile. And we've also revamped our iPad app, which released in August. So that's exploratory research. It really allows us to get out of our bubble, let our participants lead us, and tell us what's important to them. The other method I want to talk about today is user voice. Has anyone here posted to user voice before? Awesome, a couple of you guys. So if you're not familiar, user voice is where you can submit feature requests, and people can upvote them depending on what you're passionate about and what you want to see in the product. And so this really allows us to keep an open line of communication with our customers. You have access to us, and you can get in touch with us and tell us what's important to you. And so this really helps us understand if there's a level of energy around a specific feature, or if there's really a terrible pain point that you're facing while using Yammer. And so we pay attention to these requests. But while it's a really great tool, I think the way that we're using it is really unique. So we talked a little bit about our product team, and we're made up of researchers, designers, product managers, and analysts. And all of us take a weekly rotation. We have a turn every month, and we listen to all of the user voice requests that are coming in, and we have to respond to them. And not only that, but we're also listening across Twitter, our Microsoft Tech community, we're listening to our app reviews, and the person whose job it is to be listening to our customers this week has to be able to synthesize it all to share with the rest of the team. And so I know a few people that really look forward to these rotations because it allows them to have a relationship with our customers that they don't normally get to have. And so everyone on our product team is in touch with our customers and is building those relationships and is really understanding what's important to them. And so that's one benefit of this rotation. The other is that it's a way for bringing our users' voices into our daily discussions. And so even if there was a feature request that we said that we would never build, with user voice, it can keep popping up, and we'll keep discussing it as long as it keeps coming up. So at the end of your week-long rotation, you'll post to your Yammer product team group. We have a group on Yammer of all of us together. And they'll summarize everything that they learned this week, and they'll bring up all the top feature requests that they've learned. And we'll have a discussion about it. And it keeps coming up, and we're able to have our users' voices represented in these discussions. And they might change our mind, and it might not, but it's a way that you all are represented in our discussions. And so one example of this is the feature Mark All as Read. You may have seen it in your inbox. It's a check mark that allows you to mark all your messages as read. Have anyone used that feature? Yeah, awesome. So for the longest time, we didn't want to build this feature. We were worried that because Yammer was a work tool, people might miss important conversations. And we didn't want people to feel like their messages weren't being seen on Yammer. So we had made this decision, but then we kept having this conversation come up again and again because of user voice. We kept seeing this request again and again. And eventually, we saw the light. And we understood and agreed with our users that they should have the power to manage their own inboxes so they can be more productive at work. So I hope you all are enjoying that feature, and thank you for bringing your voices to the table. And we want you to know that we are listening, and we use this tool in our process. We've shipped or are currently building 57 user voice requests. And so, as you can see, we spend a lot of time talking and discussing about these specific feature requests. And I want to talk about why we do that and how it's important to us, and why we're not just shipping the top 3 requested features. And I want to get a little abstract with this at first. So I want you all to imagine that you have a customer, and they come to you and they say, we need a drill. And we notice it's on your competitor's roadmap, and we want to see when it's going to be on yours. And so you could build this drill for this user, and you could meet their needs. Or you could be wasting your time building an imperfect solution. And that's because you don't actually know why this person wants a drill yet. You don't know what the problem is that they're trying to solve. So I want you to just take a second and think of all the reasons why someone would need a drill. So they could just need 1/4-inch holes. They could just want to hang a picture in their room. Or maybe they just want to learn how to use a drill. And so depending on what the problem is they're trying to solve, the solutions might look a little different. The solution might be to just buy a drill. It could be to get someone to install your art for you, a professional that would do it better than you. It could be to take a woodworking class so you can really feel comfortable with power tools. So as you can see, depending on the problem, there might be a different solution. And so that's why we really work to understand why you're asking for these feature requests that are really important to you. We want to understand the problem that you're trying to solve. And so you might see us on User Voice digging a little bit deeper and asking, if this already existed, what would it empower you or your company to do? Or this one's one of my favorite questions. If we ship this tomorrow, how would this make your life better? How would this transform what you're doing at work right now? And so by doing this and understanding the root of people's problems, we can understand what we're really trying to solve for them. And if we focus on the problem, we really open ourselves up to a range of solutions. And we're able to then find the right one that's going to work not only for you, but for all of our users. See, the thing is with feature requests is that they're really specific. And often when a customer proposes, it might not be the best or the most effective solution. It might actually be really great for your network, and it'll solve all of your problems. But it also might make someone else's network and life more difficult. And so that's why we want to be able to focus on the problem so we can find the right solutions for the most part of our users. And so let's take an example from Yammer here. So we had a lot of requests for improvements to the Windows notifier. And some of you might be familiar with it. It's only on Windows, but it allows you to be notified of activity on Yammer without actually being in Yammer. And so we had a lot of requests related to this. We had 40 related upvotes to improving the Windows notifier. But if we take this same framework and ask why this is important, why is improving the notifier important? The answer might be because it helps people engage more easily and more deeply with Yammer from desktop. And if instead we pose this as an opportunity, if we ask, how can we help people engage more easily and deeply with Yammer from desktop? Then we now have a whole host of solutions that might be the right answer, including building a Yammer desktop app, which we just released this week. So you can see that by focusing on the problem and understanding the roots, we can make sure that we're solving the right thing. And then we can prioritize at that level. We can prioritize which problems you all are facing that are the biggest problems in your way. And that way, by thinking this way, we open ourselves up to a range of solutions. It makes us more creative, it makes us more innovative, and it enables us to provide transformative solutions rather than just incremental improvements. And so you might be wondering, once we have this big problem, once we've identified it, how do we actually break it down? How do we decide what features we're going to build for all of you? And how do we prioritize those features? So Anna Marie is going to be walking us through that.
Thanks, Emma. So prioritization. So Emma's walked us through a little bit about how we collect information all the time around what are the biggest problem areas and why those are worth solving right now. Obviously, life is about trade-offs. You can't do everything at one time. So you have to focus on the biggest opportunities you have and the biggest problem areas to solve. So I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit and talk about, once we've picked these big problem areas, how do we get into the nit and grit of it, and how do we prioritize our features? Well, at Yammer, once we've staffed a problem, once we've decided that something's a big enough area that we need to address it, we staff a cross-functional group called a Yammer initiative. And the initiative is working together towards one goal, trying to solve this big problem area. And we believe that the people who are closest to the problem should be empowered and enabled to come up with the best solutions, because they're the ones that are really digging into it day in and day out. So this initiative is really the task force that goes after these problems and brings their best solutions towards fixing it. So Yammer initiative, how's it staffed? What does it look like? Well, usually you have a couple product managers, that's me, and they'll work with design, research, analytics, and of course engineers. And so we'll have a team between 10 to 15 people that are working together trying to figure out what are the best things that we could build towards this goal. They have one shared goal, and they're working for 6 to 12 months on that goal, and building and testing many ideas during that time frame. So here's a little bit about how this process works. When we get those 10 to 15 people together, they learn about the problem. They come from all different backgrounds with all different views on different insights on our users. We look at our past research that we've done. We look at past data explorations that we've done. We look at all of our customer insights, market trends. We consider doing new research. We do new data exploration and really try to understand the problem before we even get started on solutions. Once the team feels like they've gotten a good grasp of what's going on, they start developing ideas. What are the best ways that we could solve this? What's at the meat of this? And what's going to be the most effective for our users? Then we build and test. Were we right? Was this idea the best way to go forward? Does this actually help solve the goal? And from that test, we loop back to learn more about the problem. And so this whole flywheel builds on itself, and we keep going through this process until we feel like we have accomplished our goal, and then the initiative will disband and form a new initiative working on new problems. We have several initiatives running at every time. We have different offices, multiple initiatives in all of our offices, but this is just kind of an inside look at one initiative and how it'll work. So let me go into a practical example here. Many of you may have noticed some changes in our publisher, the box where you type in the questions you have or the ideas you have. And this is coming out of our messaging initiative, which is a current initiative recently started. So you may be wondering, like, why did we put our bet in this? Why messaging? Why now? Well, a couple main reasons. We've seen a lot of rapid growth through 065 with that waffle, you know, the button up on the corner you click and has all those options. So Yammer's been on by default for about a year, and we have a bunch of users that are coming in for the first time with very little context. And what is Yammer? How does it work? What is this messaging model? How am I supposed to use this? And we find it's important that we create an environment where everyone feels comfortable and confident posting. We want to enable all of your users to connect and be more empowered together. But we can't do that if they don't feel confident and comfortable posting. So that's really kind of the root of it. So with an initiative, we start with a shared goal. And the messaging initiative has a goal of making everyone feel comfortable and confident posting. That's really the root of where we start thinking about problems. That's the main thing we want to do. But obviously, there's no one reason why someone might not feel comfortable or confident. Every user may have a different reason. There may be many of these. So we break it into problem areas. We find smaller and smaller problem areas till we find things that we can address. And this is what that first phase of the process, where everyone's trying to really understand the problem, what's going on, doing all of the research. So an example problem area in the messaging initiative is, well, people don't feel confident posting because they can't tell anyone's on Yammer to respond, and they don't want to just post into a void. So we've seen this in research, and we've heard this from our customers, from you. So we identified this as one of the many problem areas. So in addition to others, we've decided to focus on this one. And once we have problem areas, we want to think of, well, what are some hypotheses about how to fix this problem? So under each problem area, we developed many hypotheses. Well, what's the best way that we could approach this? An example hypothesis here is seeing activity would give users confidence that others are there to respond. So we have this problem area that people don't know people are there to respond. Well, maybe if we showed them activity in the product, that would give them confidence that others are there. That's a hypothesis. It's an assumption that we're making. So once we have that hypothesis, and really only then do we start digging into discrete feature ideas. Because we don't want to just be building feature ideas as they occur to us. We want to be solving core problems. So we start there, and then we build out from that. So some feature ideas for this hypothesis might be, let's see, our problem area. We can't tell anyone is here. And our hypothesis that activity gives users confidence that others are there to respond. And some feature ideas under that, you could show typing indicators. You could show that someone's typing actively right now. Or you could show likes in real time. You could show that ticker, like clicking up as people are liking things. Or you could show replies. You could load them automatically and show them bumping to the top. There's all kinds of different feature ideas you could use to show that there's activity in the product. Well, how do we pick from all of these? How do we prioritize? You can't do everything all at once. You got to start somewhere. So as Emma walked us through earlier, we're constantly collecting information and doing user research on what users are, the pains and needs that they have. And we use some of those specific insights in this process. We're listening, is there perhaps a lot of energy around one of these areas, or a lot of anti-energy around one of these areas? But then we also look internally and we ask, well, what is the reach if we built one of these three features? How many users would see this feature? And we look at our data and see what percentage of our users would see this real-time typing. We look at conversion. How many users are likely to use this? And then we look at impact. How much would this impact posting and replies? Like, what's our best estimate? If you saw this feature, how much change it would engender in the product? And then, of course, there's cost. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So we always want to estimate how much engineering effort is going to be involved. And so we look at these, as well as considering our user research and input from customer voice, and decide from there which ones we think are going to have the most impact, to be the best received, and really move us towards our goal of making everyone feel comfortable and confident posting. In this case, we built typing indicators. And some of you may have seen this in the product recently. It's that little ... underneath the message that says someone is replying right now. So we built that. But we don't want to just launch everything that we build. We went through all of that effort to collect all of that data around what users were looking to do and how we could help improve that. We broke it down into smaller problem areas, and we developed hypotheses. We had a brainstorm session for all these feature ideas, and then we did all this work to evaluate which we thought would have the most impact. Are we just going to let it lie there, or are we going to actually measure it? We want to know, did typing indicators give people confidence that others were there? Did it encourage users to post more? Well, in the case of typing indicators, we saw that it did. It boosted replies, and so you may have noticed that it's on for 100% of your users. But you may be wondering, how do we know that it boosted replies? In what way are we measuring that? What methodologies? Well, to answer that, Supriya will walk us through.
Thanks, Anna Marie. I'll be going into a bit more detail about testing our hypothesis. I'm a data scientist in my team, and on a day-to-day basis, I leverage data in order to constantly drive engagement in your networks. Let's say we have identified a problem. We think we have found a smart solution. How can we be certain that our solution works? We believe that everything we do should add value to our users. That is why we want to be certain that our solutions are working and providing value. How many of you here have used a product that is confusing and difficult to use? It's a painful experience. More often than not, people add features or make changes to a product thinking that they are adding value to their users. However, it is neither known nor obvious what kind of solutions will work. If we keep on adding features to a product without adding value, then we can end up with something that is complex and difficult to use. We don't want that. We don't want Yammer to be confusing. That is why we think it's really important to make sure that our ideas really work before we roll it out to all of our users. So how can we do that? We can use intuition and opinion. As Emma mentioned, we constantly listen to our users in order to build intuition. Our product team has built a strong intuition about what works and what does not by constantly learning about our users and staying on top of market trends. But our intuitions are not always right. In the past, we have built features that we thought would obviously work, but it actually ended up hurting our users. Anna Marie mentioned that we are constantly thinking about new features, and our team works really hard to come up with new ideas. We'd love to ship all the things that we work on, but it is not straightforward to figure out what features will provide a better solution for our users. So instead of just making an educated guess about what will work for our users, can we do something better? Can we do something more concrete and scientific? This brings us to data-driven decision-making. At Yammer, we try to leverage data so that our ideas are backed up with solid facts. To do that, we use A/B testing. A/B testing is a data-driven way to measure how good our future solution is. Almost every successful consumer company, ranging from Amazon, Google, Facebook, use A/B testing to test their ideas in order to make their product better. It is a bit new in the enterprise space, but it has a lot of potential to help us build a great product. At Yammer, we do hundreds of A/B tests, and there are several reasons why we value A/B testing. First of all, predicting user behavior in a social network is challenging. Social networks are complicated because users influence each other's behavior. Even individual user behavior tends to change over time. That makes making accurate predictions about users in a social network very hard. The nice thing about A/B testing is that it allows us to test whether our predictions are correct or not. Secondly, user preferences can change over time, since we are in a constantly evolving space. As the world changes, so does people's work habits and their expectation about digital products like Yammer. We do A/B testing because it allows us to check that our assumptions about user preferences match up with user behavior. Lastly, We want to build Yammer for everyone. We want every user to have a say in how we design our product. But most of our users do not reach out to us to voice their opinion. Even when we do usability testing, it's on a small sample of users, and they might not be representative of Yammer as a whole. So A/B testing allows us to capture the voice of the silent majority and incorporate that in our product thinking. So these are the core reasons why we use A/B testing. We believe that A/B testing will help us evolve our product in sync with customer needs. So now you might be wondering how A/B testing works. So let's get into that. So in general, we usually have two variants: the control, which is the default or the existing system, and then we have the treatment. The treatment is trying to improve something. It's the challenger. It is trying to be better than the control and replace it. So once we have the two variants decided, we randomly split users into treatment and control. Randomization is a really important part for A/B testing, so I'll get into a little bit more detail about it. In your networks, at some point in time, you might have noticed that half of your users are seeing one experience and the other half is seeing a different experience. We realize that this can be painful for IT admins. This makes communicating to employees, making tutorials and all of that challenging because of inconsistent experience. But A/B testing randomization is integral to A/B testing. The reason for that is randomization makes sure that the two groups, treatment and control, are exactly comparable on all other factors except for the change or feature we are testing. It gets rid of biases and externalities and makes sure that we have a comparable and representative sample of users. So some of you might have requested to opt out your network from A/B testing. So the reason why we can't allow that is because if we leave your network out from A/B testing, the data is no longer representative of users in your network, and we might end up building a feature that does not work for you. We don't do first release for a similar reason as well. So people who tend to opt in for first release tend to be power users and admins. And we don't want to skew our data or augment it. If we just test things on power users, then we are not building for everyone. It's for a small subset of users. So now going back to how A/B testing works, we randomly split users into treatment and control. And then we compare user behavior using key metrics. So key metrics are trying to capture users having a better experience in Yammer. It can be something like users coming back to the product more often or posting more regularly. So once we compare the user behavior using key metrics, we only ship the treatment if it improves key metrics. So these are the steps that we take in order to leverage A/B testing to inform decision making at Yammer. So we just went through the theory of A/B testing. Now we'll go through a few examples, and I hope that will make things a little bit clearer. So on the screen, you'll see a screenshot of the main landing page in Yammer. So when a new user comes into Yammer, there are a few concepts that they are exposed to. So an idea we had was, how about we make this page simple? Our hypothesis was that if we make the page simpler, new users will be able to focus on what is important in Yammer, and as a result, be retained better and post more often. So in order to make it simple, we did a right rail A/B test. So on the right side of the page, we tried to make it simpler. So the control, which is the default experience, had 8 different modules. We decided to remove like 6 of them, and the treatment just had 2 modules. So we split users into treatment and control and compared user behavior. Since now we are providing a simpler experience, we expected that user retention would go up, and posting would go up as well. But this turned out to be a really bad idea. This was very surprising for us, and it went against our intuition. Both user retention and posting went significantly down. Without testing, we would not have known. We might have just shipped this feature thinking that we are adding value to users. So it turns out that the modules were making Yammer feel more alive to new users and surfacing faces that were more familiar to them. So even with failed A/B tests, we learn a lot about our users, and that helps us make our product better. We don't use A/B testing just to make decisions about whether to ship a feature or not, but we do a thorough analysis to understand why an idea worked or did not work. We use data to understand how the feature impacts different segments of users. We look at new users versus existing users. We also look at users who are in networks that have been active for a long time versus networks that are just getting started, in order to understand what is going on, how are these users reacting to this feature. And the understanding that we get from A/B testing data can be a starting point for us to go and have a conversation with our users and get qualitative user feedback. So with data and qualitative user feedback combined, we get a comprehensive picture about how we can make our product better in the future. So if we ship things without A/B testing, we can make wrong decisions, and that can be costly. First of all, we can potentially ship a bad experience for users, as we saw with the right rail A/B test, where we are trying to simplify the user experience. Secondly, we might add useless features to the product that add no value to users. Adding useless features increases product complexity, and it slows down the speed of innovation. It slows down product thinking, engineering, and testing. So we are not able to innovate our product in order to meet customer needs. So the nice thing about A/B testing is that it helps us only ship features that we know for sure are useful to our users. Let's go through one more example. This is a really interesting A/B test that we did recently, the desktop app. As Emma mentioned, we had a lot of requests in user voice for the notifier and for like desktop app as well. And over time, we thought that this would be a useful feature for our users. The hypothesis we had was that the desktop app can help users build a habit and engage more deeply in Yammer. So at this point, this is just a hypothesis. We don't know for sure whether this is true or not. So building a full desktop app is a pretty high cost investment because it's a completely different platform. Compared to just adding feature in our existing app, this was a lot of work and investment. So instead of building a full app with all the features imaginable, we wanted to build a basic app to make sure that our hypothesis is true, that the desktop app is useful, before we went forward and built a fully featured app. So we A/B tested this. We gave half of our users the option to download the desktop app, and the remaining half did not have that option, so they could only use the web app. And we compared the user behavior, and the desktop app was amazing. Users absolutely loved it. Most of the users who download the desktop app continued using it as their primary way of using Yammer. And we saw that users were better retained and deeply engaged. And the other nice thing was that we learned a lot about how user behavior differs in the web app versus the desktop app, how the expectations are different for a static desktop app. And those learnings were really useful for us to inform future direction. So A/B testing basically showed us that we should keep investing in the desktop app. And we also reached out to users to get qualitative feedback to add on to the learnings we already had from data. Most of the users loved the desktop app, But we also got feedback for future improvements. For example, some of our users suggested that a spell checker would be really useful for the desktop app. We hadn't thought of that. So that was like really interesting for us to learn. So with data and qualitative user feedback combined, now we know that the desktop app is worth an investment and also have a clear direction on how to make future improvements for it. So to summarize, A/B testing has its pain points, but it is a powerful tool that can help us build a great product. First of all, it can help us validate our hypothesis and make sure that we are only shipping features or ideas that we know for sure works. Secondly, we can test our ideas by building a basic feature to see how useful it is for users. And if users find it really useful, we can invest more in the future and make that feature even better and user-friendly. The last thing, and I think this is the most important value of A/B testing, we learn a lot about our users. We gain insights about why an idea worked or did not, and that helps us build better ideas, generate more interesting thoughts. And this feedback cycle is very important for us in order to build a better product for you constantly. So at the end of the day, our product team has the same goals as community managers and IT admins. We all want Yammer to be a great product that enables users to make faster decisions. We want to build Yammer for you. We want to build Yammer for everyone. And A/B testing is a tool that enables us to build a better Yammer for you.
So we've been talking a lot today about how we're building for everyone, how we're building for all of our users and all of your networks and employees. We've talked about all our different ways and habits that we have for listening and learning from all of you, and how we identify our biggest problems that we should be focusing on and tackling. We talked about how we ruthlessly prioritize those to make sure that we're focusing on the ones that we believe are going to have the biggest impact on your networks to help your users become more engaged. And we talked about how we test those ideas to make sure that they really are improving your networks and making sure that we're only shipping things that are adding value. And so at the end of the day, we're out to build a better product for all of you, so we can empower your networks to connect better, so you can make better decisions faster. We are building Yammer for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We have time for Q&A here, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our user voice. For those of you who haven't checked it out, yammer.uservoice.com, please do engage with us there. And also, we would love to do user research sessions with people at your company. So if you'd like to be involved in that, the link is here, aka.ms/ignite Yammer research. So please reach out to us there. But now, if you have any questions, please, the mic's here at the front. We'd love to answer them. Yeah.
I gotta point this down. So I really appreciate the insight into how A/B testing is done. That I learned a lot there. However, when these new things show up in our networks, and me as the network admin, I don't have any idea about the change that's about to come, if that change is there to stay, why that change is there. And though I realize it may have impact on the blind aspect of all this, if you bring us into this, I wonder if there's a way that we can explore that network admins at least can be made aware when there's an A/B test of some kind. And I know from time to time I'll see a post in the Yammer user group, but I don't think it's a routine thing. Yeah. And so to avoid when one of my users comes to me and my response is, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Far
Yeah,
less
no,
forward.
we don't want you to be in that position, definitely. So we have a process where, so our product marketers have, they meet with every single person on the product management team every week and say, hey, what's testing now? What's coming up soon? What's about to be done testing? Is it going to ship? Is it not? And then they update the tech community. And Connie, what's do you know the URL for, I don't know, the public facing? Yeah.
So first off, we definitely hear that feedback. We are constantly trying to improve that process. As they mentioned, they're shipping A/B tests all the time, and it's always a balance to figure out, like, when do we need to do a post in the message center? When do we need to do a post in the service updates group? Service updates, that external group, which I believe you're in. That is the best place to keep up with the most. It covers the breadth of things. We just don't want to flood your message center with a ton of small tests, like little things that people don't know. So please share feedback on, hey, like this would have been useful to know in the message center. And like, please continue to do that. We continue to improve that process. So thanks for sharing. Yeah, let us know. We're very open to updating that process. Oh, and sorry. And it's aka.ms/YAM service update sign up.
Yeah, service updates.
Yeah, so you'll be able to go into that group and we'll talk about all the things that we're working on there.
Hi. Sorry if I'm going to be a little hard on you guys.
No worries.
Right.
It's impressive that it took you guys years to create the edit button,
The edit?
Edit button.
right? I'm happy to know that you guys do what every startup that produces software does. Good to know. Having said that, I'm really scared because I see communication sites, team sites coming up. And I've got the impression that you guys will be eaten alive in 1 or 2 years. My question is, what's the future for Yammer in your perspective?
Yeah.
Is it like Skype for Business that will just be a button in Teams, or you guys just going to be like an add-on on
Yeah, no, I think
communication sites?
I think we all have answers to this question. No, I mean, I really appreciate that question. I think it's interesting. We've been hearing questions of like, oh, what's the future for Yammer every time there's a new product out there. And I think the Microsoft approach to collaboration and communication in a network is that no one network is going to use just one tool. There's like different tools that are going to work for everyone in different scenarios and across different networks and environments. So a couple things to say. First of all, so Teams is, I mean, did you go to the product roadmap meeting on Monday? Yeah. So we really do believe that's the future of Teams, the future of Yammer, is that Teams is about that high velocity chatting conversation that you have with your inner loop of your immediate team. That if I'm talking to my other PMs and we talk every day, I'm going to use something like really high pace and high velocity for that. But if I ever want to break out of that and I want to get information from across the organization, that's where you use Yammer. We see this internally at Microsoft, where some Yammer teams use Teams for internal communication, and then Teams has a Yammer group for like getting information across the Microsoft network. So we're using each other's tools where it makes sense for those scenarios. And so we really do believe that when you want to be working with your tight-knit, like your day-to-day team that you're working with, that's a Teams scenario. But when you want to break out of that and get information from across your organization and get ideas and have communities of practice or connect with your CEO and share across the organization in that way, that's not really a team scenario. That's something for a larger audience, something for a Yammer group.
Yeah, and to add on to that, Yammer will always be the best place to connect with people across your company. To come back to our mission, it's all about tapping into the collective knowledge in your company. And Teams can't do that, and SharePoint communication sites can't do that. Yammer will always be the place where you can be building community, you can be reaching across different organizational structures and talking to experts in all different types of areas of your company. And it'll be the place where you can have an open-ended initiative where you can be sourcing feedback and ideas and looping in people that would be the unusual suspects that you wouldn't normally be working with. So Yammer will continue to always be that place for your outer loop to be able to connect with people across your company. And that's what we're going to be uniquely good at.
Kind of piggybacking on what the gentleman just talked about. If I started with a smaller group, I was basically working within Skype. We realized this is actually going someplace and we want to move it to a larger organization. Will there be a way in the future to basically take my thread, which has existed for a period of time, and then move it into Yammer so that it can be expanded upon and continued on? And a second follow-up is, we still kind of have a user problem where they really don't want to voice their opinion for fear of ridicule or whatever the case may be. Is there a way for users to anonymously make posts or comments on certain boards without actually being tracked or showing their names or identities?
Oh, interesting. So, do you want to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to talk about the future of kind of teams and Yammer working together, we don't currently have that on a roadmap, but we are, as we I mentioned these 3 scenarios around your organizational groups, your initiatives, and your communities. So we're going to be working for the next 6 to 9 months on really understanding what is important to build to really capitalize on those 3 scenarios. So that's really great feedback to know that for the initiative scenario, if you're going to be working on a project in Yammer, that might have started actually somewhere else with a smaller group, and it might have started on Teams. So that's really actually helpful, and we are in this beginning research phase of really what are the things that we should be building to get really good at these 3 scenarios. So that's really great feedback, and we would love any other ideas that you think would be basic features. Like, these are the things that are going to make my initiatives, communities, and organizational groups really great and really valuable to be using them on Yammer. And then for your second question around being able to be anonymous posting. Yeah, so as Anna Marie mentioned, we know that to have people really feel comfortable and confident posting on Yammer is still an obstacle that most networks are facing. So that, yeah, additionally, really great feedback in terms of how do we help people feel comfortable and confident posting. Also something that's not currently on our roadmap, but something that we can be thinking about. And I just as a question to you, what type of scenarios would that be useful in? Do you think it's mostly within your organization, or is it across the organization, or is it communities and projects?
For us, it's mostly across the organization, but it exists internally within a college, and then it also exists around the campus, and then, say, Eastern Seaboard. So what we'll do is we'll actually have some ideas about what we want to move forward with education or projects and things like that. We have some very boisterous individuals who have no problem speaking, and they usually dominate the conversation.
Yeah,
but I would really like to get the feedback for some of the people who normally do have great ideas, but are just a little gun shy in order to post them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about anonymity is you can look at any site on the web that allows anonymous commenting and posting, and it can turn just real disgusting real fast. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that helps to keep professional is having your real identity attached to the words that you say. So we haven't explored. I mean, anonymity is something we've talked about because there are definitely products that do anonymity, like Secret. I'll go with this. They've closed down. Blind, which does it for professional inside professional networks and things like that. And I keep coming back to just the vitriol that comes out of that and just like the negativity. I don't think that that's something that's on the long-term Yammer roadmap.
This could be another, as you mentioned, drill scenario where this is a problem, maybe there's a
Yeah, no, that's really great insight. I think to really understand, it sounds like people don't feel comfortable and confident posting. So if we turn that into the question of how might we really help people feel comfortable and confident posting, especially around topics that are a little touchy or they're engaging with leaders that they don't normally engage with. So I think that's a really amazing problem for Yammer to be solving, especially as we move into these 3 scenarios and really become more opinionated there. So yeah, and we would love to learn more about these different scenarios that are important to you. So I'm just going to come back again. We would love to talk to you, and please sign up at the Ignite Yammer research link there. There are a couple ways you can just tell us that you would want to engage, whether it's just you want to participate or maybe your organization is. But if anything, we can just have a phone call, and we'd love to learn more.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Hi, just continuing on this. In our company, we've actually created trust groups. So if there's a big meeting going on with 50 people, you've actually got a trust group, and you can send a question or a comment to maybe that trust group, and they can like it back, and then either they can actually forward on your behalf, or you like it and then they go and do it.
Oh, that's really great.
Interesting.
Yeah, so starting in like a more private, closed sphere that's trusted, and then having someone be able to translate that to a group and share that feedback. Yeah, I think that's also really important in terms of, as you're coming up with ideas, how do you also leverage and get other people in your network to support your ideas? So it's not just throwing them out into the ether, it's how do you actually adopt them and see them come to life. So I think that we've thought a lot about and done a lot of actually research around how ideas are generated and how the life of an idea. And that I think also applies to feedback that might be a little bit more touchy. And so it usually starts in these smaller circles and moves out to be a little bit more public. So that's something that we could be thinking about as well.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
That's cool insight.
Any other questions at all? We're happy to talk with you all too. We can come off stage
Yeah,
and
if you
chat
don't
a little
want
bit more.
A mic'd question.
Great.
I just have one more off topic.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the term Yammer?
Oh, the question was, how did we come up with the name Yammer? It's David Sachs, right? So that predates my time at Yammer. That was, gosh, 2009. I want to say is when Yammer was founded. I think it's around so like when you yam, it's like when you're talking, right? So you're like, it's a colloquialism for casual conversation.
But normally when someone yammers on, it's kind of a negative connotation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's tied to working out loud, and so how can we connote that? But yeah, definitely.
It's interesting. I wonder if there was like at a time if there was any kind of like negative association at the time.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, I know there's other tools that also have negative association work terms.
Hopefully we're changing that a little bit. Well, thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate it.